Welcome once again to Let's Talk Marriage. This is Pastor Larry coming to you this Wednesday afternoon with Let's Talk Marriage. All right. We're going to get right on into our program today. I hope everyone is doing well. If you woke up this morning, you are doing well. All right, on our program today, we're going to be asking the question: how well do you know your spouse? How well do you know your spouse? Now, for this question, we're going to have a lot of, a few questions we're going to be asking to see how well, and you can check and see how well you know your spouse. The reason why I'm doing this is because a lot of times we married people we don't really know, and then when we find out things about them, we're kind of surprised about it. But it's the best to know a person before you walk down the aisle with them. We've said that many times on the program. Make sure that you are walking down the aisle with someone that you know, and that's your soul. And make sure you know without a shadow of a doubt that that's your soulmate, because marriage is for life. Now we're going to be asking a few questions. You find out, ask yourself these questions, and see if you know the answer to it. Okay, the first one is, it should be an relatively easy one. I think we've done this on the program once before, but we're going to be doing it again. This time we're going to have a few more questions than normal. Okay, the first one is, what is your spouse's mother's maiden name? What is your spouse's mother's maiden name? You should all know that, and sometimes people don't for some odd reason. But you should know that, especially if you've met the parent. Sometimes if the parents were deceased when you got together, they might not know that. Depending on how long their parents were deceased, they might not know that. But you should. That's something that you should know. All right, number 2 here. How many siblings do your spouse's parents have? And can you name them? That's kind of a hard one there. How many siblings do they have? Oh, not really hard. You should know how many siblings they have, and you should be able to name them. Number 3. Okay. What was the name of the primary school where your spouse attended, and where was it located? What was the primary school or grade school, if you want to call it, that your spouse attended? All right, you should know the answer to that question. Is your spouse more like his mom or his dad? Is your spouse more like their mother or their father? That's a question that's a relatively easy question. You should be able to answer something like that. Okay, here's another question. What was their favorite? What was your spouse's favorite subject in school? What were their favorite subject in school? That's something you should know as well, because when you sit down and discuss things, first when you're first getting to know your spouse, there's some of the things you should know. And again, you should know a person before you walk down the aisle with them. Make sure that you are learning everything about them. Find out how they react when they're angry, how they treat you when they're angry, and if they're one of the people that take it out on you or something like that. Those people you don't want to stay clear from. Stay clear away from people that take their anger out on you, because you have to see people in their entire different elements. Just like when you go to certain cities, they might have 4 seasons. You want to make sure that you know your spouse within each season, how they react in the summertime when everything's going good, how they act in the wintertime when everything is going bad, how they act, what are their reactions, how well do they handle stress. That's another thing, because some people can't handle stress, And you want to make sure that you know that before you marry someone, because if they can't handle stress, then they're going to take it out in several different ways. They might drink or they might do something else. So you want to make sure you know how they handle stress or how well they handle stress. All right, here's another one. What was your spouse's least favorite subject in school? And why did they dislike it? And what did they do to get around it? Least favorite subject. All right, here's another one. What were your spouse's hobbies in school? You should. Sometimes people discuss what they did as a hobby when they were in school, when they were growing up. Some, kids might have played ball. They might have, did things, as a hobby. They might have liked to swim, something like that. But what are their hobbies? All right, moving right along here. Who is your spouse's oldest friends? Yeah, we just got discussed this because I remember answering this. Who's your spouse's favorite or oldest friend? And who were their best friend through the years? The oldest friend and who was the best friend? The oldest friend is usually someone you've known for a long time, and your best friend doesn't necessarily have to be the same person. It could be someone different. All right, here's our next one. Does he or she have any siblings? What are their names? Do your spouse have any siblings, and what are their names? Yeah, that's something you should know as well. All right, here's another one here. What was his favorite cartoon show as a kid? Everyone has some kid show that they always watched when they were coming up. My wife said she wasn't really into cartoons, but most kids are into cartoons. So you had some show that you watched a lot, whether it be cartoons or whatever, as a kid, and whenever you see it, you have a remembrance of it. All right, all right. Here's another one. Does he prefer to travel? Does your spouse prefer to travel by plane, train, or car? When we first got married, we used to do a lot of road trips. And as you get older, the road trips get more tedious. The 12-hour rides, you do it when it's necessary. 12-hour rides, because when you have a 12-hour ride, you share the driving. By the time you get where you're going, everybody's exhausted. I think we prefer to get there, where you're not exhausted. I think we prefer to fly, because it's real simple. You get there in less stress and less the time. All right, here's another one here. Can your spouse change a tire? Whether it be your husband or husbands, whether it be your wife, can they change a tire? My wife said her dad taught her how to change a tire, so I'm assuming I've never seen her do it, but I'm assuming she knows how to change a tire. And I'm trying to remember, how did I learn how to change a tire? I don't even remember how I learned how to change a tire, because most women usually their dad or brother or someone like that might have showed them how to change a tire. But I think all women should know how to do it in case of an emergency, but they shouldn't really have to. But in case of emergency, you should know how to change a tire. I learned how to change a tire years and years ago, but I don't remember how I learned how to do it. Maybe watching someone do it or something. I don't know. But I learned how to change a tire. I changed the tire the wrong way one time, so I learned from that. But I did learn how to change a tire, and a lot of other basic things. You should always know the basic things about a vehicle. Uh, sometimes show your wife. Not that she might have to use it, but just in case of emergency, she should know the basic things about a vehicle. As well as men, you should know the basic things about cooking. You shouldn't always depend on your wife to do all the cooking. You should be able to cook something. All right, moving right along here. Here's another one here. What are the three things that he or she likes about you? What are the three things your wife like about you? And what are the three things you like about her? What are the name? Three things that you can think of right off the top of your head that your spouse like about you. Now that's you should be able to answer that. That should be a no-brainer. Should be able to answer that. All right, here's another one. What is the best gift that you ever received from your spouse? What was the best gift that they ever gave you? Something that you still have. You got it when you first got married, and and you still have it. You still cherish it. What was the best gift that they ever gave you? Sometimes a lot of times it's not depending on how much was spent on the gift. Like they say, it's the thought that counts. So sometimes it might be nothing really expensive, but it's something that might be special to you. And even in your within your family, sometimes you'll get something or receive something that was passed along to you that your grandmother might have had or your grandfather might have had, and it's something that you still have. And it could be something like really simple. I remember years ago, my grandfather had a hammer that because he was always fixing something. He had a hammer that he used frequently, and he had the hammer for years. And I remember one day he accidentally he dropped the hammer on something in the wood part of the handle that chipped off. And he still kept the hammer and continued using it. And for some reason, I ended up with the hammer. I don't know how I ended up with that hammer, but it was his, and and I still have that hammer to this day. And I know it was his because it had the little chip on the end of the wooden handle of the hammer. So sometimes you have things that that your spouse have that they gave to you, and you never departed from it. You still have it. It could sometimes it's something that if it was a piece of jewelry, you might not wear it all the time, but you still have it in your jewelry box or something that that was given to you from your wife. I remember my wife gave me a bracelet. Our first, I think it was the 10th year anniversary, maybe. She gave me a bracelet, and I still have that bracelet. As a matter of fact, I still wear the bracelet. And that was like over 20 some years ago, about almost 25 years ago, that she gave me that bracelet. And I still have it. So sometimes you have things that, something that you cherish. So something that your spouse gave you that you still have, or something that you cherish. All right. Between the two of you, who is the better of making financial decisions? Now, both decisions should be mutual. All the decisions should be mutual when it comes to financing. But there's usually one of you that is better with the financings than the other. So that's why you would always let the person that's better with the financing handle the funds, so there won't be any conflicts, there won't be any disagreements, there won't be any arguments going on there because of financing. And a lot of times, most of the times, it's usually in most households. I think I'm just taking a guess here. Usually, the man might handle the financing. I let my wife handle the financing in our household simply because my wife is actually an accountant. So she's an accountant manager. So she most likely is going to handle the finances in our home. So that's how everything stays in shape. That's how she gets everything done, or we get everything done together, and we still work together. you still work together, but one of you is going to be, like, for instance, one might be a saver and the other one might be a spender. So you work together, and that's another thing that you do in a marriage. You work together. All right, here's another one here. What is the one thing about your spouse that can make you weak in the knees? What is the one thing that your spouse does that makes you weak in the knees? Just think about that. That's a question to think about. You should have something on there. Come on. Come on, people. You should have something that you should be able to answer that question. All right. All right. Okay, here's the next question here. What is your spouse's favorite color? Most everybody in our church knows what my wife's favorite color is. Yeah, I knew that right away when we met. What was her favorite color? Does your wife prefer, or does your spouse prefer, reality shows, news shows, documentaries, or movies? What do they prefer to watch on TV? Do they mainly watch a lot of reality shows, movies, or documentaries or news? So what do they normally watch? Usually, if you're watching together, you try to watch a movie. I know my wife and I, whenever we watch uh, television or something together, we usually watch a movie together. And very seldom is a horror movie. Most of the times it's a uh, maybe some sort of love story or something like that. If we're watching together, because I prefer sci-fi and things like that, or superhero movies. Every once in a while she'll watch it, but she mainly like to watch love stories, or and she sometimes watches reality shows or even talk shows. And I don't really care for talk shows, but when we watch together, we usually watch like a movie or something like that together. All right. Uh, Here is another one. Who is more organized or who is more messy in the household? There's somebody that's always organized, and there's someone that's always messy. So which one in your household is like that, messy or organized? What is your spouse's favorite book, or a book series of books that they might have read that they still talk about or mention? What was their favorite book that they've read? I don't think I have. What was a favorite book? I don't really have a favorite book. No, I don't really have one. But my wife read one series of books, and every once in a while she'll still talk about that. Okay. What is the least favorite household chore between the both of you? What is the least favorite household chore between the both of you? What is it that you don't like to do around the house? We all have those chores and things that we don't like to do. We were asking these questions on today because, a lot of times you marry someone, you don't know them. And it's a good thing that after you marry someone, even if you don't know them, get to know them. And once you get to know people, you can get along better. You can have a better relationship. Here's another question. Who is the most religious out of the both of you, or who goes to church the most? Because you have some couples where the wife goes to church and the husband goes whenever he can. He might be working a lot, so he don't get to go as much as her. And when you both got together, who was, if you belong to or if you were saved, or if you're sanctified, how they say it, or how it's put, saved or sanctified, who was more religious when you first got together? Or who is more, here's another one here, who is more emotional in church? Sometimes when couples go to church, at least one of them is going to be more emotional in service or really get into the service than the other. Which one of you is the more emotional one in church? You know, the one that hollers, or the ones that's really quiet, or or does your spouse get embarrassed when you get happy in church? You know how you get happy in church? Glory. You know, does your spouse get embarrassed? Or is he used to you getting happy in church? And how about your kids? When you're in church, your smaller kids, do they, sometimes when kids are young, they start crying when their parents get happy. Are they used to it? I know we were coming up, and my mom would really get into the service. We were used to it because we grew up in church together, and my grandparents, my cousins, and all of us went to the same church. So we were used to my aunts and my uncles, and we were used to all them being involved in church. So we were never embarrassed. So do your spouse get embarrassed, or who is the most likely to get happy in church first? Is it you or or your spouse? Okay. And here's another question here. During your prayer time, who is the most prayerful who's the prayer warrior? Let's just put it that way. Who's the prayer warrior in your family? Is it you or your spouse? Does your spouse know how to get a prayer through, or do you both just get a prayer through together? Do you touch and agree together? These are the things that you should know. These questions were just out there, and we were sharing them with you because it's always good to know your spouse, and just like you should know who God is and who He is in your life. You should know who your spouse is and what they mean to you in your life. So this is Pastor Larry. We're going to be signing off today, and we have Father's Day that's going to be coming up next month. So make sure that you support your fathers. We fathers seem to get a bad rep, because there's so many bad fathers, but there are a lot of good fathers out there. So make sure that we are giving them our support. We supported Mother's Day. That was earlier this month. So next month, because this month is going to be coming toward the end. I think a week or so left in this month, and we are going to be going into the month of June, which is Father's Day. So make sure that we are supporting our fathers, whether they be spiritual or natural fathers. Give them some props, especially if you got a good father. You got the one that fuss all the time but do anything for you. Sometimes those are the best fathers. They always fussing, but they'll do anything for you. My grandfather, because my father wasn't really around when I was coming up, so I was kind of around my grandfather a lot, and he was a terrific role model. He was awesome, and he would and I knew him, so I knew him very well, and I knew when he was fussing, he didn't mean it. He was just trying to get the point across. But he always be fussing, but he would do anything for you. There was many days that because my mother was either didn't go to church that particular time, or she was she went to another church at a particular time, and my grandfather was going to a particular church. And sometimes I would go to church with my grandfather. It'd just be he and I. We would go, and so he was a good father figure. So if you have that good father figure in your life, make sure you are supporting them. And again, make sure you know your spouse. If you don't know your spouse, ask questions. Ask them questions about things they want to do, the goals that they want to set in life. Make sure you are setting goals in your marriage to take it to the next level, because we want to make sure that our marriages are happy. Make sure and I always say marriage is not hard. I don't know why people keep saying marriage is hard. No, it's not hard. We make it hard. Just like being saved is not hard, we make it hard. So enjoy what God has given you. Enjoy your your soulmate that God has put you with. Make sure you enjoying each other and having a good time with each other. Make sure you make each other laugh. You know, if one is crying, make sure you cry with them. One is in pain, make sure you feel their pain. Make sure we having each other's back. This is Pastor Larry. I'm going to be signing off until we meet again with Let's Talk Marriage.